Hey guys, Whitney here. Welcome to the Passive Investing Made Simple Masterclass. I'm your host, Whitney Elkins Hutton. I am the Director of Investor Education here at PassiveInvesting.com, and we do this show every week to help you learn the ins and outs of passive investing, specifically passive real estate, so you can go into your next deal with confidence. Now, every once in a while, I take a little bit of a tangent, and today is going to be one of those tangents. Before we dive into that, I want to make sure that you've checked out PassiveInvestingWithWhitney.com, because if you are looking to connect with me and talk about all things passive real estate, if you're looking for open deals before the end of the year, some of you need tax benefits, some of you need to diversify your portfolio, check out PassiveInvestingWithWhitney.com. We have a few open deals right now that I would love to talk to you about. And then you can make it on our list, and you can see all of our future deals as well. Now let's dive into today's content. I am so excited to have Maya Corbic back with Teach Kids Money. Hi, Maya.
Hello.
Yeah, well, and more importantly, the reason why I have Maya back, not only because, teaching kids money is such an important topic, and so many of us as passive investors, we want to teach our kids how to be good financial stewards and start that process young. But Maya has a new book that just came out from, you want to show us, Maya? From Piggy to Stocks. Awesome. Well, Maya, let's take a couple minutes and just, for those people who didn't see your previous episode that was released in July, where are you at today? How did you get started in this wonderful arena of teaching kids about money? And more importantly, actually teaching the parents about how to teach their kids about money?
Yeah, actually, that's a good way of putting it, because that's usually what happens. I help parents understand money, and then I help them teach kids about money. But once in a while, I do have parents that are really knowledgeable about money, but they just sometimes don't know how to translate that knowledge onto their children. I actually immigrated to Canada from war-torn Bosnia with my parents when I was 15. We lost everything in the war. We had only 2 suitcases and $50 left. And when we immigrated, we lived in government shelters and government housing. I had 2 part-time jobs when I was growing up. So, I was paying for tickets like that normally parents would pay for, like bus tickets and school supplies and yearbooks and things like that. But anyways, I was a hustler, I guess, from a really young age, and learned the importance of money. And so when I was 32, my husband and I ended up paying off our mortgage, and we paid off all of our debt. I didn't have to work anymore. And I wanted to do something meaningful with my life. And at that time, my kids were really small, and I was kind of reflecting upon like some clients that I had before. I became debt free because I'm a CPA. So I worked with some people, and they had like 6-figure incomes, but they just did not know how to manage that money, and they had a very difficult time like paying off their debt, or even like sleeping at night. And so I wanted to understand, like, first of all, what are my kids going to learn about money in school, because they were very little, but also like, why were these people having such difficulty making ends meet when they were making really good income? And I realized that actually the big part of the problem is that they were not taught how to manage money smartly when they were younger. They were not taught by their parents. They were not taught by their school or the school that they were attending. So I actually decided that that was going to be something that I wanted to do. It's kind of like my life's mission. I want to educate as many kids about money as possible so that they can become financially independent adults. And I wanted to apply that onto my own children. And so I started kind of using my kids as guinea pigs, applying certain tools and techniques on them to see what works, what doesn't. And pretty soon after that, like, parents were hiring me to do school workshops, not only to teach their kids, but also to do parent workshops. And then, I ended up, COVID happened, so I couldn't really go inside the schools anymore. I was online. And the good thing about being online and having an Instagram account that I have right now is being able to have that global reach. So I've been able to impact more people that way.
That's amazing. If you guys haven't checked out her Instagram account, teach.kids.money, check it out. It is, I love the art because it really draws in the younger crowd, right? So I love that too. Well, you shared with us a little bit about the motivation and about why you wrote the book. Like, can you share some of the most important lessons that children can learn about money from your book?
Oh, absolutely. So the book actually is about investing and investing in the stock market. And the reason why I wrote it was because when I opened up my Instagram account, and this was only a few years ago, I was giving these tips about how to teach kids to save, how to teach kids to understand the difference between needs and wants. And those are all important lessons. Like, we need to teach our children that. And most parents could figure out a way how to teach kids these things. What they were stumped on was investing, because investing was one area of the finance that intimidated them. So I find that even investing in real estate is a lot easier for people to comprehend, because real estate is something that you see, right? And it's just easier to understand how it works. And so I was getting a lot of questions about investing, and especially once I started putting out these posts where, oh, if you invest like only $10 on behalf of your child once a week, after so many decades, your child can become a millionaire. So it kind of like, you don't need to invest a lot of money in order for your child to become wealthy. You just really need to you need to start early, and you need to give an opportunity to the compound interest and the long time horizon to do the heavy lifting of the wealth creation. Because our children, they have one thing that they have that we adults don't really have much of, is time. So that time and the compound interest do all the magic. And so then, I was just getting a lot of questions about that. And every time, like, I would post something, and I tried to really post educational content and like make people think a little bit different than what we're used to. People will come back to me and say, well, I don't really understand what you're talking about here. So that's kind of like why this book was written. And it was written for all those people, as well as for me, like for a younger me, because I wish that somebody explained the stock market and how it works in a language that a 10-year-old can understand. So it's like a really friendly book. It has lots of colorful pages, and the language is very simple. Like, it's short sentences, short paragraphs, but I'm explaining complex topics like what's a capital gain, what's a dividend, what's a dividend aristocrat, what is bull market, what's bear market. And it has a little like space as well for a workbook where you can just test your knowledge and see whether or not like you're actually understanding the concepts. But it's kind of like that Investing for Dummies series book. And a lot of parents that tested this book, by the way, I had testers actually test it out while I was writing it. And a lot of parents that tested it out with their kids, they came back to me and they said, thank you. Like, I finally understand how stock market works. Like, I was so intimidated, but this is actually easy.
I love that. And, a lot of people here, majority of the people listening here are, like real estate, and specifically passive real estate. So they're just kind of like, why are we talking about the stock market? Well, one, it's available to, easily available to anybody. Two, like the bear, you can invest like in a stock for like $10, right? Like, your child may not have the ability to invest alongside you in a deal yet, but you're flexing those muscles, you're teaching those skills and all of that to help them become a better investor, and eventually, if they want to, invest alongside you in real estate.
Yeah,
So,
and if I may just add to that, so,
mhm.
I understand this is like more of a real estate show. So why is investing important? Well, if COVID has taught us anything, it's about diversifying our income, right? And what I try to teach here is that, there is a way of actually investing in real estate that is not difficult, and I really believe that anybody can understand, and this is why this book exists. Like, 10-year-olds can learn how to do this. So yes, like, real estate can be your primary source of income, and that's awesome, but having a little bit of extra money or passive income from investing is a great way to diversify and mitigate the risk, right? So I just think it's just something that your child can learn about, and then they can decide whether or not they want to do it in addition to real estate.
Oh, absolutely. And, something that you pointed out, I mean, you're learning terms in a simplified way, like capital gains in the stock market is the same thing as a capital gain on a piece of property, right? So, it's more important that we get these concepts across, and and how somebody executes on them, it can be left up to like, the modality and like how they invest, right? I'm curious
And
to
sorry, can I just interrupt one other thing to say about this?
totally.
Because I'm like, another thing too, and you know what, I love real estate investing, don't get me wrong, but I'm just kind of like adding some reasons why this is, teaching our kids about this is really good and important. There's a really low barrier to entry. Nowadays, with a lot of these brokerages that are out there, you can be investing for as little as you can invest as little as $10. Okay. Whereas to actually have real estate, like if you have nothing and you've got no leverage, and it takes you a little bit of time to save up for that first real estate deal, right? So this is like really easy to get into, and you don't need a lot of money. So that's another benefit to investing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so my next question here is, what would you say the age group is that your book's primarily targeted? And if there is a specific age group, like how could you tailor the content to a different age group?
Yes, so it is actually for ages 10 and up. But it seems to me that people actually who are buying it, a lot of them are adults because they want to learn this stuff themselves. And some of them are buying it for their kids. Some of them have told me that they're actually learning it or reading it alongside their kids.
Great stocking stuffer, guys, right? Holidays are right around the corner. So, stick this in their stockings. So Maya, what role do allowances and savings account and financial goals play in your book's approach to teaching kids about money?
So allowance, I think, is a great way to introduce kids about money. I don't know if you want me to talk about it a little, or
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. Because I think I talked about it a little bit last time, but I don't mind discussing it again in case we have some new people on. But so allowance, is absolutely fantastic way to teach kids about money. A lot of times people think of allowance as a gift. I encourage you to think of it as a tool instead, because it's a tool that helps our children learn how to manage money when the stakes are low and the dollar values are low. So even if they make mistakes, it's okay. It's good that they're making mistakes because we want them to learn from those mistakes. We preferably want them to make those mistakes now rather than, when they're out of college and maybe they have a six-figure salary. At that time, the mistakes are much higher in higher dollar values. And then, what happens with allowance is that you're essentially shifting the purchasing responsibility from you onto them. So instead of you deciding whether or not you should buy that toy for them, or, you should pay for, I don't know, candy, they get to decide with the money that they have at their disposal. Because a lot of times when they ask us to buy things for them, they don't know how much money we have in our bank account. They don't know what our budget is. So of course, they keep begging, It's kind of like, why can't you buy this for me? Of course you can afford it. But when they know that they have only a certain amount of money, they act very differently. They're more reluctant to spend the money. And when it comes to allowance, there are really 4 different allowance methods. The first one is allowance tied to chores. By the way, there is no right way of doing allowance. It's entirely up to you and what works for your family and your family values. But the first one is the chores approach, and parents who support this approach, they believe that, kids should learn that, they need to work hard for their money. Money doesn't grow on trees. And if the kids don't do the chore, obviously they don't get the allowance. The second approach is the approach where allowance is not tied to chores. So the money is given regardless of whether the chores are completed, because the money is the learning tool. These parents believe that the kids, their children will not be paid to make their bed or take out trash when they're adults. They believe that they should be doing these things because they are contributing members of their family unit. And if they don't do these chores, they don't take away the allowance, they take away other things such as playtime, maybe play dates, maybe some screen time, and so on. And then the third allowance method is the hybrid of the first 2. So what that allowance method does is basically it teaches kids how to manage money, because some money is given automatically and it's not tied to chores. but the children also have an opportunity to earn additional money by doing additional chores. And the fourth allowance method is basically not giving them any money at all, but finding opportunities where they can practice to manage money. So it could be like, you know, teaching them how to manage their birthday money or how to budget, you know, for their birthday party, or maybe how to budget for their back to school shopping, essentially like teaching them how that's done and then completely like letting go and having them do that. So those are the 4 allowance methods. So why are they important? They're really great because you want to, when you teach about money, you don't want to just hand the money over. You want to tell them what to do with that money, especially at the beginning. There need to be some rules. So one of the rules that we had with our family was as soon as some money comes in, whether it's from allowance or monetary gifts, it needs to be saved. So we were teaching them that pay yourself first principle. And as soon as that money is saved, as soon as that money accumulates, it's invested. And, you know, we are keeping that for our goals. The rest of the money can be spent, and then we would teach them how to spend it smartly. We would also incorporate some, you know, donating and giving, because that's also part of financial literacy. And if it aligns with your family values, then I definitely suggest that that's something that you need to look into. But essentially the whole point is you just don't want to give them the money and say, okay, see you later. It's like you want to teach them to do something with that money and to learn certain lessons.
No, I love that. Yeah, we've adopted like a value economy in our house. And I recently stumbled across the app Gravy Stack. Have you heard of the app Gravy Stack?
No, I haven't.
It's not a supplant for your book by any stretch of the imagination, but you know, we were using Till as a way to, you know, give our daughter money. It would go on a debit card. She can then manage, see how much is in her account. Gravy Stack is a different beast because they can literally see the money go into the different buckets, you know, however we set the allocation. She has a card tied to the account, but we also can set up like, hey, here are the things that this is the expectation. This is what you do as a member to contribute to our household, right? You're a member of the group, you know, making your bed, brushing your teeth, brushing your hair, you know, those are all things that you need to do, right? I call it executive ordering, like, but then, you know, here are the other things that you could do, you know, that you should be doing as regular habits. Let's establish the habits. And then here are the other things, like, you want to help me clean our camper van, you know, so we can send it back out as a rental. You want to help me, you know, do some extra, I don't want to call them chores, but like activities in the business. I'll pay you more. And so she can like check it all off. And then she sees that the neat thing is that, and this was something I hadn't found in any other app, is she sees how much she's accumulating throughout the week. So the beginning part of the week, it's like, a couple bucks. By the end of the week, she's like, last week she racked up $21. And I was like,
nice.
And a lot of things got done around the house, and she got more and more motivated the more that she could see how much she was racking up. And then she felt good about it. And, you know, but then she went and bought makeup with it, but that's what she wanted. Right. I was like, okay, this is what you want to do.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of questions, you know, guys, we're going to do our traditional Q&A session afterwards. We'll go through all the app links that we mentioned here and everything like that. We'll get all those questions cleaned up. But I love that methodology of allowances because you gave 4 different frameworks and it really allowed people for different flexibilities. Because you're right, there's not any one right way. And for me, I had to learn which way actually resonated with my child. Because before, we tried a couple different methodologies and she could have cared less, didn't engage. But then all of a sudden, this methodology, she's like engaging, she's having fun, you know, and maybe part of it might be the age too, but
I love that. I think it's important to try different things. Like sometimes I remember one time I did a workshop, and after the workshop, one of the parents came by and she said to me, oh, we tried the allowance, but you know, we failed. And I said, what do you mean by failed? And she's like, well, it didn't work out. So we stopped giving it. And I said, but you didn't fail. You just discovered that that particular allowance method doesn't motivate your child. It doesn't work for you. So that just means that you have to try something else. And it sounds like you guys have found what works for your daughter.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, kind of taking this a step further, like what about like savings accounts? Like, how do you view savings accounts? Like, is it just in perpetuity save and this is all going to go towards investing? Are they saving for a particular goal? Like, how do you view that as part of the methodology in your book?
So I find savings accounts really important. And I mean, this is something that, we can start teaching children from very, very young age. But I do find, and I really strongly believe that we need to divide savings into long-term and short-term. The reason being is that a lot of times when we think of savings, we as parents, we think of these long-term savings. Oh, my child needs to save for college, or my child needs to save for their first home. And that is so far ahead that our kids really don't care about those goals. So those are important goals and we should be saving for those. But I think we also need to encourage our children to save and encourage that delayed gratification by teaching them how to save for short term. And to save for short term, we can ask them to pick a goal, something that they can actually save up for in the next few months. It could be a pair of shoes, or it could be a video game, or something that really, really excites them. And when they actually reach that goal, when they save for it, they will be more inclined to continue saving for those long-term goals that matter, right? Because it's kind of like, yeah, you achieved this, you can do this, and let's keep going. And I really think that, again, like saving is the step one. We started saving with our kids when they were very little, and they had savings accounts in addition to their checking accounts. I mean, I was in charge of those accounts. They were, privy to them. They could see what was going on. But very quickly they realized that whatever was saved in that savings account wasn't really earning them much money, because we had conversations around it. We would look at their financial statements and I would show them. I remember my son, he must have been 10, maybe 12, no, 10, I think. And I showed him his savings account. He had about $1,000 in that account that accumulated over the years. And I think he was getting, this is like years ago because he's 16 now, but the rate was so low. I think he was getting 60 cents or something like that for the whole year. So I said, okay, well, maybe it's time for us to invest your money into something that can actually give you a little bit of a better return, because we want your money to make money babies, to earn more money. So we actually ended up investing his money into a term deposit. We didn't go straight to stock market because that was a little bit scary. And, at that age, I didn't really think he could comprehend everything that he needed to comprehend. So we just put the money into a term deposit for 1 year. We could still withdraw money at any time. And I think at that time he made like $15 for the whole year. And after that 1 year, he was finally ready to actually start investing in the stock market. And we started buying some ETFs and index funds.
Kind of switching gears a little bit, like how can parents and teachers support kids in applying these lessons, from your book in real life?
Yeah, so actually in the book, there are a lot of examples of like what can be done to actually apply some of these lessons. So for example, one of them is like where I actually teach them like what's a public company. So a public company is just a company that anybody can be an owner of. And the whole idea also behind the book is to teach kids not to just be consumers, that they can also be owners. Because just as an example, a lot of them have cell phones or iPads. So great, they're consumers. They own Apple products, but they could also own Apple shares and be owners of Apple. So, and by the way, I'm not encouraging you to invest in Apple. It's not investment advice, but just as an example. So then I give like some ideas in the book, like how you can go about implementing some of these lessons. So one of the things is like, okay, let's see what kind of products and services we use from public companies. And let's walk around the house and pick up objects that we actually care about and see who makes them. And now, okay, let's Google this company and see. You can literally just type in, let's say, Apple public company, and it will tell you if it is, right? So then, obviously you need to do a little bit more research whether or not you want to invest in Apple. But there are activities throughout the book where I actually lead the parent and the child and just tell them like, these are some things that you can do to encourage investing.
I love that. I remember at a young age, my father did something similar with me. but he made a slight mistake here. He lost my enthusiasm because he was like, okay, you and your mom drink Coca-Cola all, like all the time. Like this, different age and time, at least in my household now, right? But he was like, okay, let's invest in, a product that you guys use. I was like, fantastic. I want to invest in Coca-Cola. And he was like, no, let's do Dr. Pepper. And I was like, I don't like Dr. Pepper. But anyways, long story short, I really love the fact that you're picking things that they're already engaged in and they would be even more excited to be an owner of.
Yeah. Can I just say one thing? I want to, so it's so interesting that your dad said, let's invest in Dr. Pepper. And also I wanted to just backtrack a little because you said your daughter spent her money on the makeup. So a lot of times, so here's the thing, this is really important. A lot of times as parents, we're trying to teach our kids about money. And instead of us letting them make their own mistakes, and not necessarily, it's not that, I'm not saying that buying makeup was a mistake. It's not a mistake. It's just like letting them make these decisions that we may not necessarily agree with is the key in the learning process. So that is one of the hardest things I think about teaching kids about money. Because when my kids were little, I remember they would have some spending money and they would want to go to Toys R Us and they wanted to spend it on Pokemon cards. And I remember these Pokemon cards, it was like a box like this big, but it had like 5 cards in there and it was $70. And I just remember like kind of going like, hey, I don't think that's a good idea. And then at one point my daughter said to me, Mom, you're making me feel very guilty. Stop talking to us. And I just realized it's like, you know what? It's their money. And so personal finance is called personal for a reason. And I use this example quite a lot. My son, he loves video games. I can't stand video games. We have certain rules about video games in our house, but he likes to play video games because some of his friends don't live in our neighborhood. They live far, so he can actually connect with them online. And so if he has some extra money, he sometimes may want to spend it on video games. Would I ever spend my money on video games? Absolutely not. One thing that I like to spend my money on is manicures. My son thinks this is ridiculous, an absolute waste of money, right? So it's completely personal. So it's like your child may ask you to do so, or may want to do something with that money that they've saved or that they want to spend. Sometimes you just have to back up and then let them make that choice. And then, maybe a few days later or a few years later, you could be like, hey, well, how was that for you? Did Dr. Pepper or did Coca-Cola work out for you? Or, a few days later, what about that makeup kit that you bought? Are you happy with it? Would you recommend it to your friend? Would you buy it again? And I've done that with my kids. And you know what? Every time they've made a purchasing decision that was a bad purchasing decision, they knew it and they actually admitted it. So it's a really good learning experience.
Well, yeah. And, this is a skill that we're trying to get our daughter to flex when she wants to do these sort of things. I'm like, okay, great. Let's think ahead 3 months, right? Because you're about to drop some change, right? Whatever purchase. Let's think ahead 3 months. What are all the things that you might want to do, might want to go, might want to purchase? And that's been useful to kind of get her to help her like prioritize, like, oh, do I really want to drop the, 30, 40 bucks on this? Or do I want to actually like, oh, is this lower priority to something else that we're going on vacation at the end of December and I want to have change to go do this activity, right? Just to kind of wrapping up, I want to make sure that, we cover a couple more topics really quick, Maya. Are there any tips or strategies from your book about making money lessons more engaging? I know we talked about stocks and stuff like that. And I asked this because when I was thinking about all the questions I could ask, I remember trying to teach my daughter some of these money lessons when she was like 6 and 7. And like, I had her attention span for like 5 seconds and then she was like gone doing something else.
Yeah. So I think the important thing about teaching kids about money is just using real life examples to teach them about money. What is happening right now in your household? Are you negotiating a cell phone bill? If they're little, have them, within earshot as you're negotiating, just so they can hear it and they might tune out and go play, right? If they're, young adults or like teenagers, you may want them to understand, like, what's your strategy for negotiating that cell phone bill, and sit down and talk to them. I find that, if you have their attention, just capture that attention for as long as you can. If they ask you questions, answer that question. Don't give too much information. Just give the basics. And if they want to know more, they're going to follow up with another question. And then you just give a little bit more information, not too much. I find that teaching kids about money is one of those things that just because you've explained it once, it doesn't mean that they fully got it. Quite frankly, my kids often forget a lot of things that I teach them, so I have to reteach it. I like to actually compare teaching kids about money to teaching kids hygiene or how to be polite. So it's like, how many times have you told your child when they were little, after they've come into the house from the outside, hey, go wash your hands? Or, after they've received something from someone, did you say thank you? Did you say thank you? Like, we've repeated that over and over and over again, and eventually starts to sink in. So money is the same way. And you just have to give a little bit frequently. I would say almost every day, but just talk about whatever is going on in real life right now, and don't make it a taboo, and just have an open and honest conversation. And it's really important to talk to them in terms that they can understand. So if your child is 10 years old, you want to pretend like you're a 10-year-old when you're explaining something. How would a 10-year-old explain stocks? That's why I wrote this book. I was like, pretending to be a 10-year-old. How can I use the language that 10-year-olds can understand? That kind of thing. And I think they actually get it.
Awesome. Are there any additional recommendations or additional resources or tools that would complement your book in helping teach kids about finances and money?
Yeah, so I have two actually online courses. One is for parents of older kids, so ages 10 and up, and one is for parents of younger kids. And it actually goes through this framework that I've built over the last 11 years. Basically, this framework gives you an opportunity to try different tools and techniques to teach different money concepts. Just like I explained, how it is with allowance, there are different allowance methods for you to use. There are also different methods and tools to teach other aspects of money. And so, and of course that differs from, teaching younger kids to teaching older kids. So these, both of these courses are on my website.
Awesome. Well, if people want to catch up with you, learn more, and possibly order the book, how can they do so?
So the book is available on Amazon or anywhere else like Barnes and Noble. It's called From Piggy Banks to Stocks, the Ultimate Guide for a Young Investor. And the best way to connect with me is on Instagram. My Instagram handle is teach.kids.money. It has a blue check mark next to it. So just make sure that you don't follow a scammer, or if somebody reaches out to you that pretends to be me, make sure that they have that blue check mark. If there's a blue check mark, that's me. If it's no blue check mark, that's not me. So lots of scammers out there.
Well, Maya, again, thank you so much for being on here, sharing your knowledge and expertise with us. If you're here live, don't go anywhere. We're about to start our Ask Me Anything session.
Thank you so much for having me.